I'm Paul Carisse. I'm the director of the School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership here at Arizona State University. We're very glad you could join us tonight for the 8th and final event in the school's Civic Discourse project for this academic year. We're discussing tonight the primary aim of the institution, the kind of institution at which we are gathered, a university. This year, our theme has been Renewing America's Civic Compact. And this is the school's 5th year organizing a speaker series devoted to civic discourse. And I have to say, for one last time this year, we are delighted to be back in person. And so thank you to everyone here in the room who has been helping us and helping us tonight to rebuild American civic discourse after the pandemic and in this particular moment in American history. You can see in the back of the room, we are delighted to be collaborating still with Arizona PBS on recording all of these events in the Civic Discourse Project, and we are live streaming tonight's event as well. Arizona PBS archives these events on their website. We also hope you will explore our website. We have a complete archive of all of the speaker events for the past 5 years in the Civic Discourse Project. That's on our website at SCETL.asu.edu. You can also find the archive of events, single speaker events, dialogue, debate events, our annual conference. You can also find that on our SCETL YouTube channel. And on the theme of civic discourse, we're very happy to have with us tonight several civic leaders from the Arizona community, also some ASU leaders and faculty and staff from other students. I'll begin by mentioning Senator John Kyle, who is the co-chair of our advisory board, the Board of Counselors. Senator Paul Boyer from the Arizona Legislature is here. Eileen Klein, past chair of the Arizona Board of Regents and now a member of our Board of Counselors. And Dean Reeson, an Arizona business leader and civic leader, also a member of our Board of Counselors. And finally, a history colleague here at ASU, Professor Eduardo Pagan is here, and Eduardo is serving this year as the president of the University Senate. The school has worked for 5 years now to convene a high-level conversation in the Civic Discourse Project. We have single speaker events like this, dialogue events, and an annual conference. Together, we try to encompass a range of views across the speakers in a given season or year of the project. The intellectual diversity we are featuring tries to exemplify civil disagreement and argues for its importance in higher education and American society. We think of the speaker series as a public extension of our academic program in the school. Our curriculum, our degrees, our student experiences, all trying to reconnect liberal arts education and civic education. And in that vein, I will announce that the theme for tonight's discussion is the theme we've chosen for next year, next season in the Civic Discourse Project. The working title at the moment, you're first to hear it, is Intellectual Diversity on Campus and in American Society. So with that, now to our distinguished speaker tonight, who has been walking the walk of intellectual diversity in higher education for many decades. John Tomasi is the inaugural president of Heterodox Academy, a national association of over 5,000 professors, educators, and students seeking to improve research and education by promoting open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement in higher education. Before joining Heterodox Academy's leadership earlier this year, he was the Romeo Elton 1843 Professor of Natural Theology at Brown University. Isn't that a great chair? The Romeo Elton 1843 Professor of Natural Theology at Brown University, where John taught and wrote about political theory and public policy. He was twice recognized for excellence in undergraduate teaching as well. And at Brown, he founded and has directed the Political Theory Project, an independent research center that supports scholarship and encourages political dialogue on campus. Tomasi is the author of 2 books that are widely discussed by political theory scholars. The first, Liberalism Beyond Justice, Citizen, Society, and the Boundaries of Political Theory, published by Princeton University Press in 2001. And the second book, Free Market Fairness, also published by Princeton in 2012. He's also published numerous scholarly articles. He began his graduate study in political philosophy at an Arizona university somewhere south of here, and then earned his doctorate at Oxford University. He's held positions at the University Center for Human Values at Princeton, the Department of Philosophy at Stanford, and the Safra Center for Ethics at Harvard. And I have to admit now, he currently is a university associate and research professor at the University of Arizona, had to say it, in their Center for the Philosophy of Freedom, led by our friend David Schmitz. So our format tonight, John will speak for about 40 minutes, and then I will join him on stage for a fireside chat without the fire. And then in the third part of the evening, President Tomasi, his new title, will take questions from the audience, so think of questions you might have in mind. We invite everyone to stay afterward for some refreshments, and if you stay to the end, you can participate in the raffle that we have we're giving away some signed copies of Professor Tomasi's book, Free Market Fairness, or you could win a SCETL mug, or you could win a SCETL water bottle. You decide which is more valuable of those three items. You were all automatically entered when you registered for tonight. So, with that, for a discussion of the question, is the goal of the university to pursue knowledge or social justice? Please join me in welcoming John Tomasi.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon. I love being back in Arizona, but I have to tell you, I feel so out of place up here. I mean, bear down. I'm just going to start. On the main green of Brown University, there's a sculpture by the Italian artist Giuseppe Pannone. It's called Idi Pietra. I don't speak Italian, but I speak enough Spanish to know that it means ideas of stone. And Pannone is known as an artist for someone who interrogates the complex intersections of nature and man. And this installation is a subtle interrogation of that combination. It is also, as you may notice, a big rock in a tree. When it went up, I noticed, I started going to the main green shortly after it went up, because I was so interested in the way people responded to this installation. Some, very few, students presumably from the Rhode Island School of Design, would come up and look at it, take notes, study it as though it were actually a work of art. But the ones who interested me more than that were the unsuspecting ones who were simply walking along, crossing the campus, often unaware of the artistic drama taking place above their heads. And in particular, I became fascinated by watching tour groups walking the campus, nervous parents, their young high school age students, walking along across the green, being spoken to. Occasionally I would notice that one member of the group would look up suddenly and see this really strange rock in a tree. That person would stop. The whole group would kind of bump into them, and they also would look up at this drama, and they go, what is that thing up there? And sometimes a mother typically would look around kind of nervous, like there's someone playing a practical joke on us by putting this rock in this tree. Or a father would look around sort of defensively to see who was playing this joke on them. And there was one group in particular that I want to talk about who did that same thing. They were walking along calmly, relaxedly, nervously. Can they get in? Those kinds of questions. And they noticed the rock on the tree. They stumbled. They looked the usual thing I'd seen before. And then eventually they resumed their normal walking pace and headed out towards the far end of the green into an archway, and the group slowly walked out through the archway. At the last minute, though, I noticed that one student, a young woman, maybe 17 years old, she stopped and let the group go ahead of her, and she turned around and looked up and back at Pannone's sculpture. She looked for maybe a second or two, but she really looked at the sculpture. And I was looking at her, and she looked down and caught my eye across the green, looking at the student, and she looked at me. Maybe she smiled, I can't remember, But then she turned back up for a last look at the sculpture before turning and disappearing through the arch. It's that student's look, that pause that I observed in her that I'm going to be talking about. But first, a little background. In 2016, my colleague at Heterodox Academy, Jonathan Haidt, gave a lecture at Duke University, a lecture which proved to be very fertile for thinking among people who are interested in heterodoxy. Heterodoxy means thinking unusual thoughts or thinking strange thoughts. And at that talk, in his talk, which I drew the title of this talk from, John asked the question, Professor Haidt asked the question, what's the telos of the university? Every organization, he says, has to have a single highest end. And he asked, in universities in 2016, he was observing, there seemed to be a tension between two rival answers to that question. On the one side, there are people who think that the telos of the university, the purpose of what we're about when we're in a place like this, is to pursue the truth. Others, though, believe something different. They believe that the purpose of the university is not the truth, but rather to pursue social justice. And I made a slide. So this opposition has been very important for Heterodox Academy because John Haidt argued that the correct answer to the question, what's the proper telos or highest goal of the university, is truth and not social justice. As the new president of Heterodox Academy and a good friend of John's, I don't like that answer. I think social justice is an extremely important concept. I think the question's malformed in a whole bunch of different ways that I'll talk about in a minute. But what I also didn't like about it was, it seems to me if you're trying to build a movement to encourage people to lovingly encourage their universities to be their best, if you're going to stake out your terrain in favor of truth and against social justice, you're going to lose a lot of the people you want to bring along with you. So not just for tactical reasons, but there are tactical reasons, I wondered about that move. I'll say a few more things about that in just a moment. So what do we think about truth versus social justice? And let me just say a couple things about why it's malformed. I also have to mention, since it's in my mind, and I tend to say the things that are in my mind, whether I plan to or not. A few minutes ago before I came up here, someone mentioned to me that the university president was walking by and said something like, I can't come to the talk because I'm busy, but if I were going to come, I don't like the question at all. And if I would come, I'd say it's a bad question. I wish he had come because I actually agree with that view. I think the question, are you about truth or social justice, is not a great question. And here's why. So the idea about telos, it's a crucial part of John Haidt's idea that there has to be everyone has to decide what's your highest mission. And often these two things can conflict. And I'll just pick an example from my own experience. A few years ago at Brown, the New York City Police Commissioner, Ray Kelly, came to give a lecture on campus. And Ray Kelly, some of you may know, was famous in New York for starting something called community policing. And the idea was that police would be on the streets in neighborhoods they would often previously have avoided and provide stronger policing by building ties with the neighborhood. That was the initial idea. But as the policy actually unfolded, the police started more aggressively stopping people and questioning them whether they had weapons or not. And the policy came to be known as stop and frisk. And they would stop people and frisk them. And in New York City, where I live now, in New York City, when police stop someone to frisk them, they don't gently say, by the way, do you have a gun on you? They stop them and they frisk them, typically putting them down to do that. And it also turned out through a couple of years of this program that a strongly disproportionate number of the people who were selected to be stopped and frisked in that severe way were African Americans, typically African American males. And eventually the policy was reformed and then dropped. When Ray Kelly came to Brown to give a talk about his experiences of community policing, there were students, I was there were students in the room who I knew had studied the issue and were really eager to talk to Ray Kelly, Police Commissioner Kelly, about his policy and how it went wrong as they saw it. But there was a larger group of people a group had organized before they came in to shout him down because they saw and they believed that this policy had been racist and that Ray Kelly was perhaps a racist himself. And so when he tried to speak, they shouted him down. It was one of the first big deplatformings that happened in the US. I mention that story just because I think it kind of shows what John was thinking about that question. Is the university about truth? In which case, perhaps if we think that's what it's about, we'd want to have Ray Kelly there so we could ask him hard questions and really find out, did it go wrong? What were you trying to do? Tell us about what you're up to, and just quietly or politely, dispassionately perhaps, ask him those hard questions. But if you think it's about social justice, you have someone coming to your campus, and as it happened, the Brown police officers were in attendance, and there were also many Providence police officers in attendance. And the social justice people felt, well, wait a minute, this guy's coming to proselytize our police in his methods. And that's a threat to the livelihood and the well-being of a lot of people of our fellow students. So social justice means we should shout this person down. It just shows that there's that dilemma. That's kind of the structure of that, of why John made that division. So that's the insight. That's the idea that John was trying to track, John Hay was trying to track in that distinction. But there's been a lot of discussion at Heterodox Academy on our blog about the distinction. And I have my own views about it. I'm going to say a couple of things about the distinction, why I think it's not a very good distinction. First, is it so clear that values are structured in such a way that one has to be on top of the other? That's one way to structure values, but there are alternative ways of structuring value too. So for example, the picture on the right, I'm just going to sort of make this up as I go, but imagine this is a professor, so the right is the search for truth, and the left is social justice. It's a photograph from a famous dispute at Yale, some of you may remember about. But let's just leave that behind and go on the right, a professor working on a mathematical equation. Now imagine with me a university, I'm going to call it the University of Chicago, just for fun, which John calls Truth U, which sponsors fabulous mathematicians, and in fact they do. There was an extremely important proof discovered by a Chicago mathematician about 5 years ago, an incredibly important proof he came up with. But imagine now that this university, Truth University, has a blatantly racist admissions policy for undergraduates. Maybe while this guy's in this room working on truth theorem, the admissions program is like having rules where they say no Jews or no African Americans, just something blatantly racist. What do we say about that university? Well, what's its highest value? How should we evaluate that university? Well, truth is going on, but it's also, so therefore, yay, it's doing incredibly important work. It's solving problems that are hundreds of years old. That's good. And yet it's doing this obviously unjust thing. So maybe, in fact, the structure is something like social justice as a side constraint. You have to be just as a minimal condition of being okay and being applause-worthy. And then truth comes after that. So only if you satisfy certain moral boundary conditions of morality can we start evaluating you in terms of your pursuit of truth. So that's one structure that looks different than the one on top of the other. Another problem that's even deeper, I think, is that is it really truth that universities should care about? Is truth the true business of universities? I'm pretty sure it's not. And in Arizona, when I was a student there, I studied theory of knowledge. And people who do philosophy will understand that truth is usually not considered the most important piece of knowledge. For example, philosophers say that knowledge, unlike truth, is a compound concept. Truth means something like having a right connection with the things you think in your head and the things that are out there in the world. But so the world is the way you think that it is. But if the world is the way you think that it is for reasons that you don't understand, or if you have the wrong reasons in your head connecting you to that truth, that's usually considered defective. So truth by itself, most philosophers say, is not adequate for human understanding. And I'll give an example. It's an embarrassingly true example. It just happened to me. As I flew into the airport a couple hours ago, I had a rental car waiting for me. And the person behind the counter told me, for $11 more, today only, and for you, you can have a convertible. It's cold where I'm from. So I said, what kind of convertible? And they said, well, we have Mustangs. And I said, do you have a red or yellow one? I said, yeah, we have a yellow one. So I paid the $11. And now I'm going to take that factual bit and move it into my hypothetical example. So imagine that some person, me, drives, let's say I have a belief. I believe that there's a really nice yellow Mustang convertible parked in the parking lot right near here. I believe that. And let's say it's true that there is a really nice yellow convertible parked in a parking lot very near here. Fair enough so far, right? I have a belief and it's true. Do I have knowledge about that? Well, maybe I do and maybe I don't. Imagine further that as I drove my rented yellow Mustang convertible into the parking lot, I was observed by some robber who watched some spacey professor with his rumbled up notes in his tie for some reason forget to lock his car as he headed off towards some building looking around for where he should go. And so the robber, seeing my stupidity, hopped into my fabulous yellow Mustang convertible and just peeled out and just burned rubber as he left the parking lot. As he left, by chance, an extremely elderly lady driving a very fancy yellow Mustang convertible slowly drove through the cloud of smoke from his tire rubber into the parking lot, looked around for an empty spot, saw the one that my car had previously been in, slid it in there, parked her car. So now here we are, right now, let's say. Do I believe that there's a yellow convertible Mustang convertible in the parking lot near here? Yes, I do believe it. But I believe it because I think I parked it there. But my car's not there anymore. Some other person's car is parked there. Something's gone wrong with my knowing that. The point is that truth isn't enough, and things can go, not having the right reasons for the things that are true, even if they're true, can lead to bad stuff. Right? I can leave here, in this simple case, I could leave here in my spacey way with my notes, go to my car, key fob doesn't work, so I kick in the window and try to start the car somehow, thinking it's my car, because there it is. And it's not my car. That's because I don't have a full understanding of the situation. That might seem to be, so truth isn't enough to have what humans want. Truth isn't enough, perhaps that means, for universities to deliver what they should deliver. And now an example that brings it a little more closely. If that sounds like a technical philosopher's point, the kind of things they teach you at the graduate school at the University of Arizona's philosophy department, which it is, let me make it more accessible and relevant to this issue. Imagine that many of the beliefs that students have when they arrive on this campus about social justice, imagine that many of the beliefs they have about social justice are true. They turn out to be true. But imagine that they don't have the right beliefs, right understanding about those beliefs. Or imagine if those true beliefs that they hold, or imagine that they're true, right? But imagine the true beliefs that they hold are held by them in some defective way. For example, imagine a 17-year-old young person who in high school watched AOC, she fervently believes that the strongest version of climate change threat is upon us. She firmly believes this. So one of the strong claims about the danger of climate change, she affirms that. She affirms it because when she was 17, she watched AOC on TikTok say Green New Deal several times in a row. She loved, as a 17-year-old, not know much about, she loves AOC, and so she believes that the strongest versions about climate change are true. And she comes onto campus now as a student, fervently believing these strong claims about climate change are true, really thinking it's an emergency. And let's imagine further that she's right. Let's imagine that, in fact, the world is such that it's a very bad situation we're facing with climate change. But again, she holds the view because she heard AOC say it when she was 17. Believing it that way, she doesn't, when she comes to college, she doesn't take any courses in climate science. She never learns what a climate science model is. She's unaware that there's more than one model for climate science. She hasn't thought about that question at all. She hasn't taken classes in economics, so she's never learned about opportunity cost. She supports the Green New Deal because AOC said it in a TikTok video a couple years before, and so she just takes that as a kind of a dogmatic fact. She hasn't thought about opportunity cost in terms of, well, if we did this programs, what other kind of losses are we going to have in our society? So she has the view, and she also doesn't have, let's say, moral philosophy. She's not aware that sometimes there's a balancing that happens about values that includes rights that people have, and the rights might matter too. So this person is, in any way we might describe, just ignorant. She lacks understanding about the things she believes. It's not much consolation to say that her belief, a tragic belief, is true, because she's ignorant. She left the school profoundly ignorant. And if you don't like the ideological valence of that example, you can flip it around easily. Imagine a 17-year-old high school boy who doesn't know much, but he knows he hates socialists and socialism. He hardly even knows what it is, let's say. He saw the same TikTok video where AOC chanted Green New Deal. And he decided right then and there, I don't like socialism, I don't like AOC, I don't like the Green New Deal, I don't believe in climate change. Comes to college, doesn't take any courses in climate science, doesn't take any courses in economics, just basically keeps believing the same thing, keeps chanting the same thing. He's defective in his knowledge just as much as she is. So in this situation, what we have is the university's failed in a basic way to teach people about what reasoning is. The universities are not just about truth. It's not just about finding or propagating the true facts. And therefore, it's not the case that professors who know the truth about climate science or anything else should just tell the people the answers. The university is a process of understanding. It's a process of exploration. It's a process of deepening our connection to facts in the world so that we have a fuller, richer, more well-rounded understanding of what the whole range of facts are. It's no consolation. It would be no consolation to have a whole generation of students who believe things that were true. It's no consolation just to say that they're true. We need to have students who are well-rounded enough and thoughtful enough to understand the various facets of that truth, so they hold the truth in the right way. The functional equivalent, that is, of not walking out in the street and kicking in a window for some car from other person's car. Rather, they now can maneuver in the world in a more sophisticated way. So that's just a sort of maybe a little technical account of why I think the distinction between truth and social justice is malformed. But I want to go back now to what I really want to talk about, which is that woman on the brown green, that young woman, another 17-year-old, let's say, who stopped and looked back. And I'm wondering, I'm going to invite you to wonder with me, why did she stop to look back? And I'm going to propose that what stopped and turned her that day was something unique in its simplicity and power, and it's something like curiosity. And I'm going to suggest that curiosity is the true meaning of the university, more powerful than truth, more powerful than justice. It lies beneath them and it comes before them. So what does it mean to be curious? To be curious, at root, is to wonder about possibilities. Curiosity is what draws us to look behind the curtain of the ordinary. Curiosity is about being impatient with the status quo. Even status quos of our own creation. Even status quos created by people we admire and who we emulate. Curiosity generates a gentle impatience with the given and with the obvious, combined with a hopefulness about something new and yet unseen. For individuals, curiosity stirs us from our dogmatic slumbers. Curiosity encourages us to throw off the heavily patterned blankets of the lives we've lived so far, and to wonder anew about how our lives might go from here and into the future. What can be more, when you become curious, that instant of curiosity, you step out into the adventures of time and change. What could be more human than stepping out like that? In the pantheon of human experiences, I count curiosity, quiet curiosity, as among the most basic human experiences, standing alongside even love and loneliness. A facet of human experience everywhere and always, curiosity has a special place in communities of learning, high schools, but colleges, I think, most of all. After all, it's curiosity which stimulates the pursuit of understanding. In that sense, curiosity is prior to truth and to knowledge alike. Further, it's tied to social justice. Curiosity is tied to social justice because it's our respect for the minds of our fellow citizens, for our shared capacity to dream and to wonder not only for ourselves, but to wonder about ourselves and about the direction our lives might take. It's curiosity about ourselves that gives our concern for social justice its point. When you see that other people have curiosity about their lives and hopes for the way their lives might go, that's why we step out of our own self-interest and start being concerned for other people, which is the groundwork of social justice, properly understood. So curiosity gives social justice its point. As with truth, so with justice, curiosity comes first. If there's a single value a university should hold sacred, I suggest, it's curiosity. Over the past decade, while campus battles have raged, the fruits of curiosity have continued to ripen and to drop among us, delicious in their variety. In 2021, for example, a team of scientists based mainly in Switzerland confirmed the existence of the Higgs boson particle, which is a huge step forward in physics understanding the nature of matter and mass. In the UK, a few years ago, a team of historians and geneticists worked together using mixed methods, science and history, and literature, by the way, to positively identify the remains of King Richard III, King of England, Lord of Ireland, whose death in 1485 is widely heralded to have marked the end of the English Middle Age. Just a decade ago, astronomers knew of only 450 or so other planets that's beyond our solar system. Today, they know of more than 4,000. So we've been having these smoking fights, or many of us, on campuses while we're doing this. This incredible process has been unfolding, curiosity driving it. It's not only scholarship that's driven by curiosity, learning leads hard on curiosity too. On my first semester in college, I took a philosophy course in which, after reading some Descartes, we were assigned a paper with a prompt: how do you know that your life is real rather than just a dream? Philosophy grabbed me that day and has yet to let go. But curiosity drives vocationally directed forms of learning too. I'm going to an example that just because it's in my head again. My wife Amy is a social worker, and she works in a large homelessness network in Providence, Rhode Island. Across from Amy's office, there's a window inside of which there are these medical mannequins that nurses use. And Amy tells me that very often, some of her clients who come to see her stop and look in that window while they're waiting their turn to talk with her. And when they walk in, they ask her, well, what are those things about? What are they doing over there? And they're interested to learn that, in fact, these mannequins are used for a nurse's assistance class. And some of them start to wonder, well, could I take that class? Could I become a nurse's assistant? Many of them are looking for a way out, for a new life, for a job, for some way of living in the world by themselves. They want that very badly. And they're wondering now, from having seen these mannequins, could that be me? Maybe I could do that. And some of them do. Where might my life go Who might I become? What change might happen to me? Not just the homeless, but regular people too, regular non-homeless people too. You might be thinking about a career in business. You might think to yourself, I want to make a lot of money. But you wonder, can you do it? And you wonder, how could you do it? What path will your life take? Again, these are basic questions. These are that wondering about ourselves and our lives is a common, brutally basic experience for all of us. Compared to academic teloi, such as truth or social justice, curiosity encourages virtues, patterns of interaction among us, our fellow citizens on campuses. Compared to truth or social justice, curiosity encourages patterns of interaction that are more lovely. We all know the downsides of the warrior attitudes associated with the pursuit of social justice on campuses, the regrettably self-righteous anger of deplatformers, like those students who shouted down Ray Kelly at Brown, or the nihilistic approach to social conflict in which feelings are encouraged to trump reason, or being angry is enough. We know the downsides of that. And yet, if the virtues of social justice, especially among the young, if I can say that, are overwarm, truth has icy companions of its own that are sometimes too cold. Against the plea for safe spaces, defenders of truth sometimes assert that the university should be a place of discomfort. It should be a place of intellectual danger, or that walking onto campus should be like stepping into a cold shower. I actually said that in a public talk about 10 years ago. I was still learning. And the idea, I suppose, is something like this: learning hurts, kid. Get used to it. Perhaps. But by contrast, there's something connective and thus joyful about curiosity. When someone begins a sentence, I wonder why, ... It would take a hard heart indeed not to hear them asking, could you help me understand how ... Or, shall we think about this together, you and I? Each expression of curiosity is an invitation to connect. When we see curiosity in another, we recognize in them a place for ourselves. It's a place to enjoy an intellectual adventure with another. Like truth and social justice, curiosity carries an imperative of its own. They both carry imperative. When people demand truth, searching for truth, it's a powerful thing, right? It's an insistent demand. So too, more obviously perhaps, with social justice, when people say, we want social justice, there's an imperative there. But less noticed, I think, is that curiosity carries its own imperative. The primary demand of curiosity, interestingly, is to be allowed to roam free. What's more, by its very nature, curiosity recognizes only boundaries that it sets for itself. Individual by individual, working group by working group, curiosity stakes out and takes possession of its own domain. Even this, though, sells curiosity short. For curiosity is an inveterate transgressor of boundaries. After all, none of us can know with certainty where another person's curiosity might lead them. Disciplinary boundaries and ideological boundaries too. No offense can stop curiosity. Curiosity slips around every wall. Curiosity, in its quiet and connective way, is, in my opinion, the most radical of human virtues. While this power of curiosity that I've been describing exists everywhere and in all places where humans interact with each other, it's crucial to see that the status and power of curiosity is amplified by the special conditions of university life. Whenever a colleague or a student leads with a sincere expression of curiosity, I wonder whether, for example, that expression, the simple expression of saying, I wonder whether, has the ability to stop and turn even the weightiest of conversations, like an Archimedean lever. And woe to any authority figure within the university who fails to honor the imperatible force of curiosity. Teachers or scholars who discount sincere expressions of curiosity, say by ignoring an inconvenient question or by belittling a person asking an inconvenient question, they reveal themselves as pretenders, as bullies and frauds in the kingdom of learning. Fail to honor curiosity, even for a moment, and the mask of authority melts from your face. So for all these reasons, I suggest that curiosity and the practice of curiosity is a sacred value, the highest of all goals for learning communities of all kinds, high schools, colleges, and research universities like ASU, too. In all such places, curiosity arises and asserts its imperatible claims prior even to the concepts of truth and justice. I want to go back to my friend, forward to my friend. So, how much time do I have? Oh, really? Okay. Okay. It's less than I thought. I think the university, so I'm going to step back in curiosity now and say something about what I think a university is. And it's not going to be the true social justice stuff that was advertised in my title. I'm just going to tell you some stuff that I've been thinking about on the plane over here for the last couple days too. I think the university is I haven't got this worked out all the way yet, so I might need your help in the Q&A because I might mess it up. But I think this I'm sure of. The university is a unique and very special place within a free and open society. And I'm going to suggest that a university is something like, or should be understood as something like, a garden for curiosity. A special garden. Curiosity is going to be important everywhere. But within the university, I think, it's like a garden for curiosity. Importantly, like any good garden, this garden has walls around it. Walls not to keep out people or ideas, but walls to keep out something like the ordinary run of politics. And that I mean walls to keep out the tactics of political campaigns, which often play fast and loose with truth, and fast and loose with knowledge, and fast and loose with emotion to get certain things done. That whole world of politics and all the dirty tricks that go with it, I'm a political scientist, so I know some of them, but all that stuff, that should be kept outside the university, or at least should be allowed in an only very specialized form. I think that in a garden of curiosity of the university, surrounded by walls to keep out the ordinary run of politics, the research disciplines, the great disciplines of research that professors spend their lives contributing to, adding a leaf or a branch, these are like great old trees within the garden. Each student in the garden and the university, it seems to me, is like a precious singular plant, an annual, or is there such a thing as a quadrennial? A quadrennial. They're only here for a little while, and they're in many ways, because of that brevity of their experience here, the most precious thing we have. They're also perhaps the most delicate. They're also the ones that in many ways most need this protection from those walls, because they're going to be transplanted out into the real world pretty soon, and baby, it's tough out there. But this is the time, this is 4 years, in the specialized conditions of university life, for them to grow and to become strong. So when the transplantation day comes, they can do it. They can move on, and they can be the person they're going to be. The professors, getting now to my main interest as a president of an academy of professors, are or should be gardeners. I think often professors, for a variety of reasons, have fallen asleep in their potting sheds. They've allowed administrators in my view, to run too much of the garden. No offense to administrators in the room. We love you. Who are you? Maybe you signed the paychecks, I'm not sure, for the gardeners. But we need, a well-tended garden needs gardeners who are willing to leave their comfortable gardening shacks and walk out to stroll among the plants, to add to the trees, and to tend to them, to be aware of to distinguish the weeds from the plants, and to be willing to pull out the weeds when they arise. So I think that curiosity is the main thing that we should be thinking about at universities. I think we should refashion and imagine ourselves as sharing a garden together of a very special kind. I think that curiosity is much more important to us than truth or social justice, because curiosity is what drives both of those ideas. And I'll stop there and have Paul join me. Can I sit down?
Thank you very much. Ooh, no, go ahead. I'm just thinking, I was sitting next to some of my students, and I wonder if they're thinking the courses they have with me are the manure of the garden, but I won't go there.
I was thinking about manure.
Yeah. I thought we would start by talking about Heterodox Academy a bit. So but even before that, start with a little biography. So it's an honor for me to have you here, to be able to invite you to here to speak. As a more junior scholar, I knew of your work, and then I admired your courage in founding the political theory project at Brown University. And then I was delighted to learn a few months ago that you had agreed at least to take a leave from Brown to be the first president of Heterodox Academy. Heterodox Academy started in 2015. The idea for this school at Arizona State University was hatched in 2016, just a year later, and I became a member of Heterodox Academy pretty early on in that time. So everybody here has, or most people here, you should be able to find flyers about Heterodox Academy as an institution in higher education of professors and staff and other educators and students as well. So you've got slides that you want to show in addition to this? Yeah.
Should I just say a few things?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is our mission. And many of you may know, some of you probably know of FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education. FIRE is an organization which we think is like a complement to us, or we're a complement to them. That's what they would say, at least. So FIRE is a big group that is they're a group of maybe a very legalistic group that does a really important work of advocating for the rights of individual students and professors on college campuses, typically using legal methods to force universities, sometimes, to do the right thing and the legal thing, or the right thing, of allowing free speech. You have to have that. You have to have that fighting against the bad things that they do. HXA is different. We're focused more on, well, if you have the rights to free speech, what's the quality of the conversation? How brave, how sincere are we when we encounter ideas that are unlike our own? How well do we listen? How poorly do we listen? So we try to encourage us to understand that part of the puzzle. They fight for the rights, we fight for a conception of what we ought to be doing together. And just very quickly, I think on their flyer shows these some basic stats about us. One bit I want to show you, I don't want to show you the slide, but I'm going to. So this is HXA membership by campus, Harvard, NYU, and guess who's number 3, right? Pretty cool, right? Yeah. I hesitate to show it because if you scroll down, really, 32 people? I'm going down there tomorrow, and I'm going to show them the slide. I'm not sure it's going to move them at all, but pretty striking, right, that there's that many. And this is something that is sort of a summary of what we believe, that you should make. This is for students and for faculty. It's a way of being on campus. It's a way of being good gardeners, I think. We try to do it ourselves, and we try to encourage other people to do it too, to make your case using evidence. That means if you're having an argument with someone in your dorm, you don't just like beat them up or show them some other TikTok video. You try to point to some actual facts in the world. and try to get some agreement about that, and then move on from there. Be charitable. When you hear someone say something stupid, make a boneheaded claim, or use the wrong phrase, or make an argument that just seems pretty benighted, be charitable about that. Think of them as a person just like you, trying to find their way. And think of yourself as a partner, a colleague, who might help them do things better. Be humble. We don't know nothing. We know so little about anything. It's just sad. We should be aware of that. And I mean about important things, really important things. We barely know anything. Be constructive. It's easy to rip people down. So that's what philosophers are trained to do, alas. And there's something to that. But building is lovely. And finally, be yourself. Be actually who you really are as an individual. Don't be someone who's wearing the outfit, the soldier's costume that someone else handed down to you. So we all know what you're going to say before you say it, because we can see the uniform you're wearing. Remember that you were born alone. You're going to die alone. Live together as an individual. So that's a quick version of Heterodox Academy.
So let me just ask a couple of questions. And first, to start by being charitable. I was seeing Senator Kyle.
Let's say you soften up your person asking you questions. You give them all this stuff first.
Yeah. So
what's he going to do?
Senator Kyle's a graduate of the University of Arizona Law School, and I need to say, the University of Arizona, that Center for the Philosophy of Freedom, David Schmitz, was part of the founding of this school here, the presence that John had in the States. So to be charitable, U of A. But I'm really glad that ASU ranks so highly. I didn't know that. I didn't see that slide until
it's pretty cool, right?
Members of Heterodox Academy. A dimension of Heterodox Academy that you've just shown is as a forum, a national association that's debating what Heterodox Academy is about.
Yes.
Right? That when you started, when you were announced as the first president of Heterodox Academy, there was a webinar. It was sort of still during the COVID lockdown period. And John Haidt, who we had here in our first year in the Civic Discourse project, spoke about the themes of Heterodox Academy. John Haidt was introducing you, and the two of you kind of had an exchange, because John was saying truth is what a university should be about, pursuit of truth. And you came back with no, curiosity should be the. So here's Heterodox Academy showing its heterodoxy in the founder, a co-founder, and you. But then I wanted to ask this question. Isn't it the case still today that Heterodox asks members who join, right, professors, staff, administrators, students, to identify themselves on the political or intellectual spectrum, and that there still is today about a range of people. It's not just conservatives who join Heterodox Academy, or it's not just liberals, or not just, it's this range of people in the group. Is that?
Yeah, so statistically it's true that the membership of about 5,000 is roughly evenly divided between people who lean left and lean right. But I wonder about that. It's true, but if you look at the academy itself, it's not an even balance at all. It's very one-sided, especially in the US. So we have a strange, non-representative sample of this institution we're trying to affect. And I wonder about that sometimes, just speaking very frankly, because there are serious problems in universities about a lack of viewpoint diversity that, the viewpoint diversity that interests me go way beyond ideology left and right. They include religious perspectives. They include a whole variety of moral perspectives. They include class perspectives, racial perspectives, identity perspectives. I think all these different forms of difference are what Heterodox Academy is truly about, or should truly be about. And yet there is always this thing in people's minds, if you're involved in universities at all, about the glaring fact of ideological imbalance within universities. As a person who, and I think of myself as a libertarian of a certain sort, a social justice libertarian, whatever that means, it's my own view. Free Market Fairness is kind of the book that I'm best known for. But I still remember as a junior faculty member being called by some pollster out from Los Angeles saying, by the way, we just looked at your voting, they were checking the voting registration records of Ivy League faculty. And I was like this untenured third-year professor in my office. And this person the pollster called me and said, so we see you're a registered Republican, because I was a registered Republican then. And I said, do you know of any other, you're the only one we can find in the social sciences at Brown. Do you know of any others? And I actually said to the person, can I close my door? So, and that's an important fact that I don't want this sort of lovey-dovey stuff to wash that away. So I think it's a really important challenge we're facing at universities. If we're serious about giving young people the chance to think for themselves, to be, not just to be skillful defenders of one inherited ideology, but actually to be thought leaders with new ideas. We have to be honest with ourselves about the effects of ideological imbalance is on young people in our classrooms. If you don't ever take a class with an intelligent person who could show you by example how someone with a reasonably high IQ could be a Republican, you're not going to be a well-educated person. And there's a real danger that will be the case in our society now. So that's a hard one for me. We're bipartisan, we're big tent, and yet there is this really important issue that we can't skate around, that we're not balanced within our universities on an ideological dimension. You all know that, but I need to say it.
So to follow up on that, I wanted to ask you about the theme of this year in the Civic Discourse Project. So Civic Discourse, intellectual diversity, constructive disagreement, that's the aim of the project, multiple years. This year we chose the theme of renewing America's civic compact on the premise that something more than a social contract, a civic compact among Americans had frayed, decayed. We use various terms about that, polarization, negative, affective polarization. What message does your talk tonight about curiosity in the university, and also Heterodox Academy more broadly, what message does this view about education have for beyond the university helping address this moment of, let's say for the sake of argument, dysfunctional,
right,
negative, angry, polarized American politics?
I mean, it's a big question, right? It's a civic question about where we are as a country. And I'm very worried about where we are as a country in a variety of ways. No country can long endure with citizens who don't deeply, on some fundamental level, believe in that country and believe in its values. I don't mean that you don't have to be blind to the manifest defects of our society. I think caring about a society really means seeing those defects and working constructively to try to improve them. But we're in a real danger, in my view, and my observation. I travel a lot, I talk to people a lot of different places, and whatever, like you, I read. And we're in real danger of having a generation of people who don't understand founding principles, don't understand great texts, in part because many great texts have been removed from the canon because they're problematic. And there's some obvious examples, like The Catcher in the Rye or Huckleberry Finn, incredible, some Shakespeare plays. There are things that have been sort of pushed off the agenda. Thomas Jefferson's ideas, not just his relationships to his slaves, incredibly objectionable those relationships were. And there's a danger, I think, that we're taking this concern for social justice, which is appropriate, and using it to cut ourselves off from deep wisdom. And that deep wisdom, I think, is partly what holds us together as a society. As we start losing those common texts, those common ideas, that belief that America is a certain country founded on a certain set of ideals that are worth fighting for, that they give us a reason to see where injustice lies, we lose something that's really fundamental. And I think we're there now in many ways. There's also a kind of apathy you're probably hearing about the last couple of weeks. People are talking about this more and more. Students disengaging. I'm hearing this all around the country now. I think partly it's that people are wondering how serious we're going to be about our conversations on university campuses. We do a big poll at HXA every year, a campus expression survey. And we found this year that 67% of college undergraduates across the country report that they self-censor in classes. So now you're sitting in a classroom, many of you do sit in classrooms like this, where more than half the students around you are not saying what they think. That leads to a boring situation. It's not exciting. Interestingly to me, 89% of students polled said that they feel that their university should do more to encourage open discourse. So there's the bad side, right? That there's that large number silencing themselves, but something like 90% of students want some adult in the room to do more to encourage serious conversations. Maybe the students would wake up and talk more and be interested more if we gave them conversations worth having rather than hiding from them.
Thank you. One last question. So if you're out in the audience thinking of a question to pose, we have a microphone here. But one last question from me. I mentioned this to you earlier today, and it's curious that you heard, we have to find out whether this is justified true belief or whether it's rumor, that President Crow was walking by and saw the title of the... but I did want to ask about the ASU charter, and I was telling you that President Crow is very, very proud of this.
It's on the plaque. We walked by it.
We walked by the large monument there with the charter, and so related to the title of your talk and also your remarks, to ask about the question you posed to us, or the answer you gave to your own question, in a sense, that perhaps the nature of reality and of human beings is that more than one principle or virtue or value can be important. We could come up with a smaller set of the most crucial, the most important, but maybe something about reality, human beings in a liberal constitutional democracy suggests that we have to accept more than one principle and that they might be in tension. So I was mentioning to you that the ASU charter since 2014 has said that a public university should care about research and discovery of public value, and also a public university should take a fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the communities it serves. So can you see, in relation to your talk, that there could be a way to say curiosity, pursuit of knowledge matters, but also social justice matters. Universities should care about social justice, but in a way different from other institutions.
What did you say? What's the last formulation about
the ASU's charter says the university will take fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the communities it serves, which I was translating as well. You could say that's justice or social justice.
I like that a lot. But I would say, I think it's a little bit like happiness. I don't think the university gets citizens. I don't think the university prepares students to do those things necessarily by having them take classes to do those things. I think you get students prepared to become citizens to do those things by allowing them to explore while they're in college, by allowing them to wonder things that interest them. They shouldn't be worrying about the state of Arizona's economy when they're trying to decide whether to major in poetry or to take a class in math. They should be thinking to themselves, what interests me? What do I care about? What do I care about? And they should follow their hearts and their mind. Maybe they care about business, that's fine, whatever it is, right? But they should be following their own hearts and their own interests while they're in school. A citizenry who does that will actually study when they're in college. They'll actually learn things about, they might decide poetry, not for me. They might decide business, that's my life. They'll learn things and they'll be more knowledgeable. They'll be more powerful citizens, better able to contribute information and ideas to the society, to Arizona and beyond, than people who actually aim at that. Aristotle says, to be happy, you can't aim at happiness. It's a process. And I think something similar is true with those ideas. We don't want to vo-tech students, intentionally vo-tech us to become good citizens. We take political science courses and nothing else? Really? Sounds kind of boring to me. Rather, we encourage people to be who they want to be for these 4 precious years, to study what they want to study, to choose a concentration that interests them, or they think might lead them towards a path of life that they would find valuable, or they think they couldn't possibly do. That's where beauty is. And I think beauty often leads to power in the long run. So that's what I would say. So I love the statement. I like the plaque when I walk by it. I wouldn't aim directly at it, but I like it.
Thank you, John, for the conversation. We have time for questions from the audience. We ask that you pose a brief question rather than make a long statement.
And I'll do a brief answer.
Yes. Floor is open.
Thank you, President Tomasi.
Hi.
So I'm Paul Boyer. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one that thought the question was malformed. And so my question is, I wonder if I can provide a fourth option on what the telos of the university is, and to get your thoughts on that. So I love the idea of curiosity, but I wonder if, as a telos, if that's enough. And so what I was wondering is if virtue for the end goal, the telos of self-governance for the individual, if that might be the telos of the university.
Wow. Self-governance?
Correct, yeah.
Like controlling yourself?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. Tell me what you mean, self-governance.
Well,
you mean like a Kantian idea of like living according to rules that you give for yourself. They're your rules, and you live according to them.
I'm meaning more of a Socratic idea of, and I'm thinking specifically the four cardinal virtues,
Yeah.
Temperance, courage, justice, and wisdom, where one can govern oneself.
I think that's part. I mean, you won't like this, but I think that's sort of built into 5. Being yourself means something like being a self-governed agent. I think that's a sense in which when we're looking at as we were walking over, looking at the plaque on your whatever it is that way. I did wonder about that because the plaque feels a little bit like you guys are here to be cogs in a machine to make the society a better place, rather than like you're here for yourselves to live your own life. And both are true. We're citizens, but we're also individuals with our lives to lead. And so when I read that plaque as we walked by it, I did wonder a little bit about whether it makes room for what you're talking about, something like individuality, which you're calling self-governance. But I like that a lot. What would it mean to be a self-governed person? I think it might mean to become a more fully individuated person, a person, each of you, who's more truly yourself. How do you become more truly yourself? I think it's by having the bravery to think for yourself what you believe, to ask questions that come to you, put them out there into the room, and trust your fellow students and citizens not to be too mean to you. And when they are mean to you, as they're mean to me sometimes, to take that with a grain of salt and move on, and then do it again the next day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there.
I like your t-shirt.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Graham Armconnect. So I know as Heights discussed and as you've discussed with Heterodox Academy, it almost seems like we're creating these cultures of fragility on college campuses because we don't have opposing viewpoints in a lot of areas. How could I personally, in everyday steps, help produce that resilience in classmates?
Yeah, that's great. Are you a student?
Yes.
What year are you?
I'm a junior this
You're a junior. Do you see fragility around you? Or do you see, is there a fear of fragility around you in your classes?
In some classes, I think that there are some people that might not necessarily say what they're thinking just because they're afraid that they're going to be struck down for it. And so in some ways, they might be a little bit fragile, not wanting to come forward.
Yeah. So my students, I taught at my last class at Brown last fall, a class called The University, where we talked about a lot of these issues. And I think there's some students in my class were saying that universities are actually about social justice and should be about social justice. And they really started taking that head on as their view, that university should be a space where people come together who accept a certain class of premises that are not yet, as they put it, accepted by the wider society. That some university like Brown should be a place which is a famously left-leaning university, where people should come. They shouldn't have to have debates about gay marriage or abortion, these kind of issues that are controversial. Rather, a university should be a place where those things can be put aside, because everyone agrees on that, and they move on from there. I think it's a difficult challenge, and they've said to me something that stuck with me, and they say that sometimes when the stakes are so high in the political world for some of these issues, to have a dispassionate, open conversation about some of these issues is callous in a way that we should be aware of and more sensitive to. The way one student put it to me was that some certain questions fall unevenly on the ears of the student body because of the inequalities in our society. Inequalities on gender and race and sexuality and other dimensions of inequality too. And then we should be sensitive to those differences, and I think that's right. So finding that place where we can be bold and brave, because there is some insight in truth having icy companions. A university should not be an easy, comfortable place. It shouldn't be a little float down. What's that big river at LSU? Or what's that thing called? The lazy river. Yeah, it shouldn't be a inner tube ride down the lazy river, whatever it is, right? There should be like some moments when it starts to go really fast and you get kind of scared. There should be some times when someone says something in class and people start agreeing with it that you don't agree with at all. And you're actually thinking to yourself, wait a minute, these people are rocking my world right now. That should happen. And yet, we're from a society with inequalities and differences. And we can't pretend that's not true. We have to be brave in the face of those differences and be willing to ask honest questions and trust our fellow citizens to hear us. I'll tell you something that I didn't plan to tell you, but early in my beginning of my presidency of Heterodox Academy, I wrote some things saying that truth is not our only mission. And I received some pretty angry emails from our membership, some of our members who really feel like they're like they feel like they're in the Alamo, they're surrounded, they're being attacked, and they damn well need their president to stand up and be clear and strong about this thing we're facing at the university. And I hear that. I mean, I've been at Brown for 27 years. You're the whatever. I've lived that, and I know that. But I don't know if there's really power in that in the long run. And I'll also tell you, by the way, that when I was just before I got on the plane to come here, I got a message from our communications people saying, by the way, I just want to check in with you, be sure you're set for your talk at Arizona State. You should be aware that sometimes you get some hate, and there may be some people who will yell at you for things you say. I was like, wait a minute, so this is, before I was getting it from my disenchanted, whatever, members on the right. Okay, whatever, they're my people, I understand, they're angry at me. Now I'm getting it from people who don't like Heterodox Academy because we're on the right, I guess. So I don't know what to do with that. But she actually called my attention to just think through, she said to me, what you're going to do if they start throwing things. Maybe you're about to start throwing things now, I don't know, but it doesn't feel, I'm not feeling that. I felt it, I've had it before, but not
I'm
here.
scanning the room.
I didn't answer your question, did I?
No, the answer.
Did you say no?
No.
Thank you. That's good.
So I mean, the question is, what could I do, or what could any SCETL student do to sort of push back against that fragility? How can we encourage others in our classes to speak up, and how can we push back on people that almost feel like they have this moral superiority in the classroom?
I think it's a strange thing in our world how much ideas matter and conversations matter. And it's an odd thing to know that arguments often carry the day. And being willing to talk to professors about the way they teach their classes. Maybe you can't do it when you're in their class and they're grading you. That's also a tough thing to do. But I know of students who've talked to professors about the fact they're being graded by them and that they're in a weak position to say what they're going to say. And then they say things to them like, you have posters from one candidate all over the office, so I know which side you're on. How am I supposed to be thinking you're teaching me to be a free thinker? Like, honest questions, delivered politely, with sincerity, can reach people. Not everyone. There are jerks all through the world. Maybe there's a higher than average percentage among us professors for all kinds of weird reasons why we got here and what happens to us once we are here. But I do believe in the power of serious conversations, hard questions sincerely posed among your fellow citizens, among your fellow students, but among your teachers too. They know what they're doing. They know what they're the ones who are driving political ideology in their classroom. They know what they're doing. They damn well know what they're doing, and they know they shouldn't be doing it.
Thank you. So I think we've got 3 questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. So go ahead.
I'll be brief.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to get this right. My question has to do with the idea that the university is, at least I believe, is a little bit more of a disciplined pursuit. Now, whether the telos is curiosity or whatnot, but we start with the idea of social justice, But to me, it seems as though the effectual reality of social justice in this pursuit is antithetical to the idea of discipline or the word discipline, right? The stakes are too high. It's better to, and then so you offer curiosity as the check on that, right? But to me, social justice, the stakes are too high. It's better to trample on someone else's curiosity, and then if we're wrong, then it's better to ask for forgiveness later. And then so you say, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but then you offer curiosity as the ideal check, right?
Yeah, good.
But
That's a great summary.
And then you note curiosity recognizes only boundaries set by itself. So my question is, what is to check curiosity?
Great.
And
Great.
because if you look at the 19th and 20th centuries, we've had 2 nuclear bombs dropped, mass genocide.
It's really good.
And so the question is there something higher that can provide a disciplined framework for this curiosity?
So good.
Okay. And
That's fabulous.
the last thing I'll say is
He didn't say that about any of my questions. You notice that?
Well, I mean,
Stephen, so that's your... Yeah.
Answer that question.
And the only thing I'll add, I know we're short on time, is at SCETL we have the word leadership in the name, which I used to think was silly. When I got to the school, I seriously, I wouldn't even tell people.
Really?
I just
you don't like leadership?
well, who are we to? What is leadership? But now I've since completely changed my mind on that, and so I think that's sort of what we're offering here at this school. What is your idea of this? There's have to be some higher schema.
So the curiosity point is a killer. I don't know what to say about it. Are there perverse forms of curiosity? I'm thinking, for example, of the Nazi scientists who went to Tibet to try to understand the roots of Aryan culture. I don't know much about that. I need to learn more. But I can imagine that they're actually curious. And they were investigating the roots of their superiority.
Eugenics, generally. Right?
Yeah,
I guess
eugenics,
that's it.
right. So am I going to say, are you going to force me to say, yeah, how gentle, how communicative, they're all together, right? I don't want to say that. So what am I saying? There's some check, some scan, I'm just going to scan on it. Maybe it's this, maybe, I can't do it. Well, I'll just try. Sorry.
This is just between the two of you.
Maybe,
Go.
maybe there's a check in the market of a conversation. If it's just that group of people doing their thing, doing curiosity, they can do that because in the wider world, there are going to be other scholars saying, that's really horseshit. Or that's not only horseshit, it's actually self-serving horseshit. And then they can erode the problem. So maybe in a wider community of people genuinely searching for understanding, curiosity is given free rein, even allowing, now your addition, that it may lead to some people in some really unpleasant directions. And maybe this is maybe you can make your point in a really obvious way. If you allow curiosity the way I'm describing it, we're going to have people who are semi-ignorant, because we all are, asking really benighted questions in class a lot of the time on about really sensitive, important topics. People ask really benighted questions about gender and sexuality, for example, at a moment when we're trying to understand these things in a more sophisticated way. We'll get some really boneheaded, offensive, genuine expressions of curiosity about things. And that might be problematic and worrying. I think it's a price we have to pay. But I love the concept. It's going to bother me tonight as I'm trying to sleep. Thank you.
That's a tough question to follow.
No kidding. Please don't.
In your opinion, is there any worry about a university becoming too focused on social justice, that it strays too far from truth and the university loses its purpose of the creation and dissemination of knowledge? Or do you believe that truth and social justice are so connected that there's not the opportunity for something like that to happen?
I think that what people take to be social justice is one of the greatest dangers to free inquiry in the universities. Social justice has a visible imperative about it. When they make demands about social justice, when they make claims about social justice, they come off as demands. Because people are aware that it has this open sesame character, as Hayek once called it. So I think that the popular understanding of social justice is one of the greatest threats to the university being what it should be currently. And what an incredible perversion that is. Because university is an open discussion. That's how we progress, it's so fundamental to our progress. Gay marriage is one of the most striking examples from recent history, where many of the people leading the gay marriage movement said all they had were their arguments, that it was a genuine kind of love. That's all they had. And through time, they've convinced a lot of people to allow that. I mean, it's controversial still in many areas, of course, but the idea of that through reason, we achieve social justice. So when social justice cuts off reason, when social justice is used to stop people from reading Huckleberry Finn, when social justice is used to stop us from inquiring and asking open questions about race or about gender or about religion, it's a terrible, self-undercutting approach to social justice. But I think social justice understood that way is a great threat. It leads to trivialization. It leads to a stultifying of the human mind. It leads to making university places of boredom, of expectations met because they're so predictable. It's the worst thing that can happen at a university. It's a kind of authoritarianism in the most literal sense of that term. So yeah, I don't like it.
Thank you.
Now I'll get attacked from that side.
Hello, my name is Garrett, and I am a junior at ASU. I am a double major in biomedicine and political science.
Oh, double major.
A decision driven by curiosity, you could say.
Wow. So you're taking like classes in two
Totally different things. I'll go from an organic chemistry lecture all the way to a political ideology lecture.
Are you taking a junior year abroad just to make it more interesting?
No, unfortunately not. I'm inspired.
Is this going to be a biology question or a political science question? I'm terrified.
Putting you on the spot today, huh? I'm inspired by your
Covalent
description of curiosity, and during this discussion found myself falling under the stronger power of curiosity in regards to a recent ASU incident. In the fall semester of 2021, 2 white males were, to say the least, loudly asked to leave a multicultural center.
Yeah, I heard about this.
The video received national attention and a response from ASU. My question to you is, what do you think the gardeners, as you describe them, should do with an incident like this one? And with regards to curiosity, do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing?
Which thing are you asking about exactly?
That's the students were asked to leave, or which is the...
How do you think the incident led both groups, whether they be in the room themselves or the people that were already in the room, what do you think that did to their curiosity? And then the first question, what do you think under what you described as to be a gardener that we need to institute in education, what do you think they should have done to help the situation for a better understanding of both social justice and truth?
So I think that not just you, but every other person in this room could provide a more sophisticated answer to that question than I can. One of the things I know is that when incidents like this happen, there's often context and details that outsiders don't really hear about. So I heard about this incident in the most general ways that were very unflattering to all involved. So I don't want to make an obvious blunder by saying something stupid to all of you and wasting your time. What do you think?
What I was really hoping for, I guess you could say, is to come to an understanding of what I should do with my curiosity, because I am actually one of the students in the video. So where would you place yourself in a place like me that I'm standing in now, 4 months after an incident of national recognition, being, I guess, humbled, you could say the least, to be kicked out of some research opportunities that I was already pursuing, to receive backlash from many of my professors, and from all these things, I'm finding myself not so struck by curiosity anymore and not wanting to pursue truth or social justice.
Yeah.
I'm just confused in which way to move on from here, so I was hoping for a better description of what you yourself and what maybe the organization could do to help students who find themselves in that position in the future.
Can I say something to you?
Yeah.
I don't know much about the incident. I don't know much about you, but I respect you. The fact that you're standing there asking the question the way you're doing strikes me as an act of courage. And the tone in which you're asking it, maybe you tear your hair out and are extremely angry back in your dorm or whatever, but you're not doing that right now. You're standing there like I would wish I could stand in a similar situation that you've been through. So I don't know what the history was. I don't know what your role was, but I admire what you're doing right this very moment. It's a kind of a profiling courage, in my opinion. Again, I'm not.
Thank you. Thank
I mean,
you.
I just say that to you.
Because I would identify myself as a Republican, and I am very open to learning. That's why I have pursued 2 totally different degrees. I just love the opportunity to hear perspectives from all sorts of people, and and that's why I came here tonight, because I think that the core foundations of what you guys talk about would be very helpful into eliminating something like that in the future and allowing for good social justice to exist in a society and in education, and that could also lead to better truth. So
Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective.
No, it's inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was a great finish.
Wow.
We now have a raffle. But some very valuable things being raffled. Inscribed copies of Free Market Fairness, and then a mug and a water bottle. So go ahead, read off the.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, the names are here. Okay, thank you, John, for helping. So
I feel like
a winner.
actually Vanna White.
Yeah, a winner of one of the books is Christina Aridi. Is Christina here? Christina's not here? Okay, well, I keep that copy. Matthew Adler. Is Matthew Adler here? Matthew, come up. Here you can get it directly from the author.
Wait.
Steve Crandall. Is Steve Crandall here? A winner of the book? No.
Drove them away. Drove the audience.
We're gonna have to figure out what to do. Carol, you can't leave the room. We have to figure out what to do with it. Winner of a water bottle, Patrick Barrett. Why don't you give Patrick a book and a. Patrick, you get a book and a water bottle.
I think he wants a water bottle. I think he wants a water bottle.
Yeah.
You know what
So
I got one of those cups last time, and I chipped it yesterday. So.
So it comes with a book.
Okay.
Like it or not.
But now wait a second.
We lost the water bottle. What's over here?
Oh, the water bottle. I think so.
Well, you can't have
might
both.
have to trade
You
later
can't
because
have
somebody
both.
else was.
You know what? They can have the book.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
You did a great job, by the
Yeah.
way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
So,
That was cold.
Carol.
That was cold.
Yeah, Carol, can you remind me not to do the raffle next year? Yeah. And then Eldon Smith was supposed to get a mug, but Eldon is going to be stuck with the water bottle. No, he didn't. Oh, all he gets is a book.
He took the mug and the water bottle.
Yeah. So you get a book. You get a book. There you go.
It's not a bad book.
Thank you. That's very amazing.
And then we're going to figure out what to do with the last inscribed copy. So, thanks for a little excitement, everybody. I have some closing remarks to finish out the year. So, to our last questioner, who has 2 majors already, I wonder whether you could fit in a minor in civic and economic thought and leadership. There we go. So, if you're a student or if you care about students, I hope you'll pick up some literature outside about our academic program, major, minor, a PPE certificate, philosophy, politics,
Nice.
Economics undergraduate certificate. You can find more information, of course, on our website. Look for more information on our website about the lineup of speakers we have in the Civic Discourse Project for the coming year. I mentioned the theme, intellectual diversity on campus and in American society. We have nailed down one date and one speaker. We have an annual Constitution Day lecture every September. So this September, it's September 19th, if you're keeping your calendar already, a Constitution Day lecture by Jane Kamensky, a professor of history at Harvard. She's the director of the Schlesinger Library of the History of Women in American History. She's going to be speaking about 1776 and us on this theme, I think, of debates about the meaning of the American founding, so that will fit into the intellectual diversity theme. If you value this sort of forum, the Civic Discourse Project generally, what you saw and enjoyed tonight, we hope you will think about supporting the school. You can go to our website scetl.asu.edu, and under the About tab across the top, you could think of supporting the school in that way. We also need support for scholarships for students. As you can see, we have some terrific students. There's information outside as well about, in fact, right, have we got our pocket constitutions outside? You can pick up one of those and other information about the school. I do have to finish the year with some thanks. We do this every event, though. Thanks to our terrific team in the school. We must have the best set of staff and faculty supporting these kinds of public events of any unit on the campus. Our director of public programs, associate director for the school, Carol McNamara. Morgan Raddick. Carol.